Welcome to our first interview. Today we are interviewing Bryce McGilvery, who is a local bold babe, a boss bitch, killing it in the game. And we're just gonna dive right in.
Cool, I'm excited.
Yeah, so we both know Bryce for a long time. I went to college with Bryce and we would just see each other around Rhode Island. Janelle, I don't know how you met Bryce, but I know you work with her.
We work together now. I work part-time with Bryce. And we knew each other growing up a little bit in high school,
Yeah,
maybe?
I think so.
And then mutual
such a
friends.
small state. I feel like everyone just knows of one another, even if they don't personally know each other. So many times someone's like mentioned someone's name and I'm like, oh yeah, I know her, but I've never had a conversation with her. I just like know of her. So you just feel, it's that small town vibe. You just feel like you know everybody, even if you don't actually know them.
Yeah. Couldn't agree.
But you guys are the best.
Thanks for coming today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
But having known of you and knowing you for a long time, we're able to watch your journey on social media, like what your goals were. And none of us knew exactly, what you were thinking or what your process was or where you wanted to be. But we've seen kind of this growth from like your love of fashion and blogging, and then your move to New York and back home, and growing into such a successful businesswoman, as such a successful social media influencer. So tell us a little bit about, yourself, what you're doing right now, and why you love it so much.
Okay, so that's kind of a long story, but the long and short of it is, when I was in college, I first started out wanting to be a teacher because I felt like in the fashion industry you had to move to New York City to be successful, and I felt like that was just so unachievable for me since I'm such a homebody and I'm so family oriented. I love Rhode Island, and I was like, that was uncomfortable for me. That was a huge step out of my comfort zone that I was afraid to make. So I was taking the easy way out, and I was like, you know what, let me just be a teacher, live the comfortable life for myself. Not saying all teachers live the comfortable life, but for myself, that was what my mind process was at the time. And I did about a year and a half as an EDU major, and then I was like, this is so not for me. I even got to the point where I was like student teaching. And I got a feel for it, and I was like, you know what, I'm not being true to myself at all. And that was a huge moment for me. That was a defining moment in my self-growth, acknowledging who I was, where I wanted to be, and what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to make an impact. Fashion sometimes has the stigma where it's not serving a purpose in this world. You're not making a difference. You're not a nurse. You're not helping somebody. But in actuality, like, fashion is that. Like, you wake up every day and you choose what you wear and what makes you feel good and what brings out the best mood in you, and that all comes from fashion. That comes from the style, the silhouettes of clothing, that comes from the colors. That's where it all comes from. And so I decided that I was going to shape my own fashion career to make it something that fit my goals. And so I was like, let me start with, I love to write. There's no fashion internships in Rhode Island. We're kind of shit out of luck with that. So I couldn't really gain any experience. I couldn't really dabble into different aspects of the industry. So I was like, I fell in love with fashion blogs. It was right when it was starting. We're talking, this was 2010, so this was 8 years ago.
So wild.
It was 8 years ago. I was 17, not even 18 because I'm really young for my age. Wait, what? I'm really young for my grade. I'm really young for my age. I'm really young for my grade.
Wait, what?
Quote
for
Scotty.
your age too, yeah.
Scotty, wait, what? Scotty Cunha. So I was young and I was still learning about myself and what those goals were. And when I was falling in love with these fashion bloggers, I realized that on the screen, they had it all together. They had the perfect outfits, they had the perfect life, they had the hashtag couple goals, they had beautiful kids, they they were just showcasing all these amazing qualities of life, and that is what I aspired for. That's what I aspired to be. I aspired to have this like amazing life that I could showcase on the internet, and I started, had no really idea, like I had no plan. I was like, let this just be a hobby for me. I love to write. That's my way of expressing myself. I love to talk as well, but like writing is where I can really think out my thought process and tap into my feelings. And so I was like, let me just start this blog. Long story short, Blonde Batons came about. My brother came up with the name.
Did he?
Love it!
Oh, I did not know that.
Fun fact that no one knows. My brother came up with that name. It was inspired by Brooklyn Blonde. She is a huge inspiration to me. Has been for the past 8 years.
I could see that.
Caleb thought of that, and I just ran with it. And I started. I went to Best Buy. I just like bought myself a camera. Made my sister, my friends, my brother, anyone who would be around to take pictures of me, and just tried to inspire girls and tried to speak my truth and be myself and find myself in the process for me. So I really wanted to make sure that moving into college, I had a different experience. I opened up myself a little bit more and tried to express who I was, and the blog helped me do that. Blonde and Batons was a grounding moment for me, and it allowed me to be like, to open up my self-expression, to talk about things that I wouldn't normally talk about, and it was easier for me to tell that story through writing on the internet and not having to do that face-to-face. So that blog was like literally the foundation to my life and my career now.
So how did the blog get you into New York?
So because there were no internships, like I was saying previously, the blog was a platform to showcase my writing capabilities, my styling capabilities, all in one. So I was also trying to build my social network. So I was working with a couple brands. At the time, this is when influencer marketing started. It was in its infancy stages, but this is like really when it was starting, and brands were actually trusting influencers to move their product and push sales. And so I was on a very, very, very small level of that. Like I was like a micro influencer, still am, but at the time I was even smaller. And they were like, oh, you have a couple thousand followers, like let us throw you some free product and you push it. It would be like hair products. I did something for Sebastian hair one time. And that also helped me gain credibility when I went to New York and I applied for all of these internships, and I was up against girls from FIT, Parsons, top UCLA, like top fashion schools. And I had something that was physical. I had something that was not like on paper, that was like I did this internship and learned this, and this. I could actually pull up my blog and show that. I'm such a visual person too. I appreciate things like that. So when interns come in to fit the ninth, I'm like, oh, I love that you have your own site. That's awesome. And it spoke volumes, I guess, because I got an internship at a very, very, very prestigious PR agency called Bismarck Phillips Communications and Media. My cousin, John Averill, was a senior account executive there at the time, so it also helps to know people. I should know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. Relationships are huge.
In using your relationships to the advantage. I think sometimes, I know for myself and my past experiences, I wanted to rebel and say, no, I can do this myself. I don't need, my dad or my friend or whoever it is. But, I mean, that's the world that we live in, is relationships and networking.
And you earned those relationships. And if someone can speak positively about you, that's huge. So, that's credible back to you. So like I said, John helped me get that internship, but I also had my blog as proof that I was capable and wasn't letting John down. And I actually stayed at BPCM for about 6 months as an unpaid intern. Typically, the internship programs in New York City last 3 months. I stayed an extra 3 because they wanted to hire me, but they didn't have any positions available at the time. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna keep pushing and trudging forward to show my worth and my value here. So I would like fill in for employees when they would go on maternity leave or they were sick. And I worked hard. I really, truly did. I put money at the bottom of my priority list, and I was poor. You know, I had no money. Luckily, my soon-to-be husband was with me in New York City, and he helped support my dreams and made the money for us to be able to eat at night and live. And I hustled. Yeah.
So where did you go after the internship?
So after the internship, so funny story, I never really talk about this part, but Brett, my soon-to-be husband, he is a personal trainer. So when we moved to New York City, he started training at Crunch Fitness, and he landed a client who is a chef at the restaurant below Kelly Catrone's office. So Kelly Catrone, if you don't know Kelly Catrone, she is a PR mogul. She has been on America's Next Top Model. She's been on The Hills, The City. She's known for making people cry. Her book is called If You Have to Cry, Go Outside, and she would religiously say that every day in the office. So I guess that's a part of her
brand.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I explain her. This client of Brett's, he was really familiar with Kelly because Kelly would go to his restaurant all the time. And he was like, you know, what does your girlfriend do? And Brett was explaining to him what I did. And he was like, you know, why don't we introduce her to Kelly? Maybe Kelly could take her on as an employee and get her a full-time job. So I met Kelly and got hired. Started working for her as her executive assistant and showroom manager. It was a huge opportunity for me. Not only was it my first like paid job out of school, but you know, she's a pretty big deal in that part of the industry. So I really felt like it motivated me. I was like, okay, I'm capable. I am, you know, obviously smart enough, and I can do this. I mean, that was a pretty big role, and it was like every girl's dream job. It was painful. So painful. I'm not even gonna lie. I'll never lie about that. And it was a huge character building moment. It was torture. I don't even know what else to say about that time in my life other than I've never been so unhappy.
How did you recognize that you were so unhappy?
It was actually Brett who said to me, like, you know, Bryce, this is taking a toll on you. Like, this is not healthy for you to feel like this. This is not healthy for anyone to come home and live like this. I wasn't sleeping. Like, it was just, yeah, it was terrible. So I was crying all of the time, and I'm like not a huge crier. So I think that was also a huge sign. It was like physical stress. I was like physically ill. And I would call my mom in Rhode Island, and I'm like, Mom, this is like, I hate it. I don't want to go to work tomorrow. Like, I'm scared. And she was like, you know, Bryce, this is every girl's dream job, and you've worked so hard to get here. Like, stick it out, and maybe it will get better. And I took that, and I ran with it, and I was like, okay, this is every girl's dream job. I'm so lucky. Like, I was trying to convince myself that I was fortunate to be in this position. And finally I was like, I know who I am, and this is not me. Like, this is not healthy. And I started feeling the effects of the stress. I developed a tumor in my neck, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and like, I was like, I need to just get out of this place. Like, I just realized that my happiness was the most important thing. And that any career, any financial opportunity was never going to be more important than my health and my happiness. And I wanted to move home. I wanted to be back home with my family. I ran from the city